Hi, this is Scott Elzey and Christy Brewster. We are presenting the case of running to a safe place, the story of hope, using the Bodynamic Technique and attachment theory. PTSD has physiological elements which include a heightened activation of the autonomic nervous system, as well as psychologic symptoms. Using the Bodynamic Technique for trauma is a recall of a safe place and a comforting person from the client's present or earlier life. Clients who are too fragile for the use of the Bodynamic Technique can often be helped simply with the reawakening of resources that come from the therapeutic process itself. We want actual sensory memories to be identified, such as images, smells, and sensations. So it is important to identify both a person and a place the client actually knows. This makes actual imagination easier. When using people or situations that are fantasies, it eliminates the power of reawakenings of forgotten resources. Clients who don't have a strong recall of a safe, comforting person and place are generally not good candidates for bodynamic therapy. Hope is a 50-year-old widow who is the mother of 3 and grandmother of 2. Her husband died tragically 1 year ago. Since his death, she has felt in danger and her daily functioning has suffered. Therapy helps her routine tasks, but she has an underlying persistent fear. She cannot fully utilize the Bodynamic Technique at this point because of her instability. But both Hope and the therapist believe that finding a safe place to run would be beneficial. Several weeks into the course of therapy, the Bodynamic Technique is initiated. The therapist asks Hope if she has thought of her safe place and how she feels. Hope describes a rapid heartbeat and fear. She also describes sadness when she is under stress. She reveals when she thinks about her husband, she is often sad. It is quite common for anxious people to calm when they become sad. This sadness is associated with a feeling of aloneness, and this is when the therapist asks if Hope thinks this is a good time to set a safe place to run. The therapist continues to check Hope's body awareness with her breathing, temperature in her fingers, and the feelings in her chest. And Hope agrees this would be a good, positive experience, so they proceed. Hope has picked a spot in the woods that she liked as a teenager, where she would watch fish while sitting and thinking. The therapist checks in with her and her feelings, and she is feeling peaceful. Her body awareness tells us that the safe place technique is working well. The next portion of the technique, before actually running to the location, is to draw a map of how to get there. And it's important to know how far the safe place is from where the client is at this moment, because when they are drawing a map, gaps will need to be filled. The client is imagining running to the safe place from the therapist's office. The drawing of a map helps to solidify the route to safety in the client's mind, while making it possible for the therapist to follow along or direct the client's route. It also gives the client something concrete to take home that illustrates she was able to get away from the trauma and make it to the safe place. It then reinforces the awareness of the here and now by drawing something that happened then. The drawing has 2 parts, one running away from here and the other running to there, while in between inventing things to fill in the gaps. The first part is where you want to land, near it, but far enough away that you can actually get a feeling of running to it. The second part is how to fill in the gaps, such as planes, bridges, trains, anything as long as it keeps them moving. The idea is to stimulate the flight reflex so you do not want to interrupt the run. The route is detailed with directions, crosswalks, and having to wait for stoplights. It is important to remember the client is fully in control of the fantasy. The route is reviewed in detail by the therapist. Body awareness is again reviewed to address any sympathetic arousal. Hope's arousal responses are low, and therefore they can move forward. As stated earlier, a person of comfort is used in the Bodynamic Technique. At this point, the person is brought forth into our fantasy. Hope's person of comfort is her grandmother. She was close to her grandmother as a child and also liked it down by the stream. Hope finds comfort in the thought of her grandmother. What is important for the client is they choose someone safe, and there are few complications. Choosing someone such as her deceased husband would bring emotions that were too unpredictable. By the end of therapy, further in her grieving process, this could be possible to enhance feelings of safety for the client. Hope describes how she wants her grandmother to greet her as she runs to her arms. This greeting brings feelings of warmth, love, and sadness. The therapist alerts Hope she might be running there with some fear and stress, but to imagine the embrace of her grandmother and the phrase that she often said to comfort her, and asks if this is the type of reception she needs. Noticeably, something happens when Hope thinks about this response from her grandmother, and she becomes teary. The therapist reassures Hope that she can have this feeling of comfort anytime she wants. The next step involves actually running. Hope's feet are flat on the floor to better position herself for the sensation of running, and she is to imagine herself running out the door. She is to feel her legs strong beneath her, carrying her quickly down the street, through the crosswalks, under the bridges, through the traffic lights, over the fences, and approaching the loving embrace of her grandmother, hearing the loving phrase, "Oh, Hope, my little Hope." The idea is to help the client imagine the actual sensation of running and to encourage them to keep going. Once they are at a safe place, giving them clues to hear and feel their comforting person is also present to help. As soon as this is over, the discussion about her body awareness begins and how it felt for her. She describes hot and cold sensations and an abrupt end to the fantasy. It is important to emphasize that this is her fantasy and she is in control. Discuss about how the fantasy could be more helpful to Hope in relieving her stress, such as saying, "You're safe now," which could be added to make her less scared. She can also change the embrace and where the embrace happens with her grandmother. Again, this emphasizes the client is in control of the fantasy, helping to make the running to a safe place work better for her. The therapist and Hope again review how Hope feels in her body, and Hope feels more solid and less anxious. She now has more control. This is not a cure for Hope's grief or fear, but reawakens her to feelings of safety and unconditional love she had in her youth, shared with her grandmother. When Hope lost her husband and isolated herself, she forgot what love and safety looked like. Without those internalized safe places, she was constantly fearful and scared. With a safe place and the comfort her grandmother gave her, she is able to find more distinction and peace.